Okay, so the POCO X3 GT. This is a phone that raises a lot of questions and I've been using it for quite a while now, so let us share our experience with you after using it for like about a week or so. And we also have a special segment at the end of this video where we talk about your questions instead. So the POCO X3 GT that we have here does have a few similarities when you compare it with the previous POCO X3 family of devices that we reviewed. For example, this IPS LCD screen right here. This is a 6.6 inch screen with 2400 by 1080 pixels in resolution, and it can go up to 120Hz refresh rate as well. And the IPS LCD screen here, yes, I know a lot of people will complain it's not an AMOLED screen, but through my eyes, I can see that this is indeed a very good IPS LCD screen, which I think is comparable with the Mi 10T Pro's IPS LCD screen, which I have praised during our review late last year, which you can also check it out at the top right corner there. And one thing that I can say for sure is that the refresh rate of the POCO X3 GT is actually pretty good. There's no ghosting or just motion blur in general because the G to G response time of the pixel is actually very good. As for the design of the POCO X3 GT though, as you can see here, the one that we got here is called the Stargaze Black color. And why they call it Stargaze Black is because when you look at the bottom part of this back of the phone here, there is like glitter effect. I'm not too sure if that's appropriate to describe this kind of effect, but it kind of has a gradient where the glitter is most dense at the bottom of the phone and they just disappear at the silvery top part of the phone here. And this is a glossy plastic back finish, so it does catch fingerprints very easily as well. And one thing I need to highlight about this Stargaze Black effect is that this glitter effect can blend in with dust, lint and fingerprints pretty well. So yeah. As for the cameras of this POCO X3 GT, it's pretty standard. We got 3 different cameras right here, and surprisingly all 3 of them can be used. Thank you POCO for not including those useless depth sensor, which I think should be phased out in the year 2021. And as for the picture quality that comes out of the POCO X3 GT, it's actually pretty decent. We'll leave everything in auto at first, and some of these shots actually look pretty decent, but some shots do look underexposed, while some shots look over-processed to the point where it just looks fake. And then I also manually turn HDR on and off, and it does a pretty good job of lighting up the dimmer areas of this shot in particular, but HDR also changed the color of the sky as well. As for the ultra wide angle camera, I think there's nothing much to talk about it here. It's pretty standard. It looks pretty decent and that's all I can say anyway. The macro camera though, it's a horrendous macro camera, and honestly speaking, this is that one camera that I'll never use in the POCO X3 GT because it just produces pictures that are pretty much unusable. It's better if you use the main camera, take a close-up shot and then crop it in. And as for the software side of things, the POCO X3 GT is using MIUI 12.5, which I have talked about it extensively in our previous reviews, so you can check it out at the top right corner there. Any one of those reviews will do because we also mentioned the same thing over and over again. MIUI 12 is pretty fine for day-to-day use if you can get by all of the weird UI placements or the weird sorting in the settings menu, and also some of the weird bugs and glitches, and also some weird options like 30 FPS screen recording at whatever bitrate or resolution that you select. And yeah, that bug is still here. Now it's time for the performance. The POCO X3 GT is equipped with the MediaTek Dimensity 1100 chipset. I have initially praised this chipset in our gaming test video for the POCO X3 GT, which you can watch it at the top right corner there. And I still stand by that because the Dimensity 1100 is, well, in a way not as powerful as its Snapdragon competitors, but it is still a very competent chip overall. The GPU in the Dimensity 1100 is not particularly quote-unquote flagship level, but it is still capable of playing Genshin Impact at medium graphical settings without any issues or major stuttering like we've tried in the past. And let's not forget that the Dimensity 1100 does not heat up as much as its competitors as well, as you can see in this little graph right here that we obtained using PerfDog. Now, as for the battery side of things though, the POCO X3 GT comes with a 5000 mAh battery, and it does last for a very long time in our battery life test, mainly thanks to its Dimensity 1100 chipset, which doesn't consume that much battery. But as for the charger side of things though, the POCO X3 GT comes with a 67 watt charger, which might sound a lot if you compare with the POCO X3 Pro or the POCO F3. But in truth though, it actually takes about 45 minutes to charge from 15 to 100%. And that might sound like it takes too long because the Black Shark 4, which we have also reviewed, you can check it out at the top right corner there too. The Black Shark 4 comes with a 67 watt charger also, but it takes like half of the time that the POCO X3 takes to charge from 15 to 100%. Why is that? Well, it's because the Black Shark 4 uses a dual cell battery design, whereby the POCO X3 GT uses a single cell battery design. So that is your limiting factor when it comes to charging speed. And now that we are done with the usual 6 points when it comes to a smartphone review, we'll head on to your questions instead. First of all, thank you for leaving your questions down in the comment section of our gaming test video, because right here is where we take a look at them. So one of the questions that I think we got the most is the comparison between the POCO X3 GT and also the POCO X3 Pro. The usual question is which one is better, which one you should buy, and also which one is better for gaming in particular. Okay, so let's talk about the POCO X3 Pro first. That phone in particular, as we stated in our original review a few months ago, which you can check it out at the top right corner there, we mentioned that the POCO X3 Pro is only good for gaming in particular, and it still stays true. So the POCO X3 GT is meant for more than just gaming, even though its performance isn't as good as the POCO X3 Pro. So here's my suggestion to you. If you just want to play games on your phone, then get the POCO X3 Pro. You'll never go wrong with that decision. But if you want to go more than just gaming, like taking pictures or whatever, then get the POCO X3 GT, because this phone is more than just for gaming. And generally, the POCO X3 GT doesn't heat up as much as the POCO X3 Pro. Yeah, it's much more efficient and more comfortable to hold if you are sensitive to the heat. Oh, by the way, I should also mention that one of the main distinctions between the POCO X3 Pro and the POCO
X3 GT
is the audio jack, because for whatever reason the POCO X3 GT doesn't have an audio jack. I don't know what's going on, but it just doesn't have an audio jack at all. So if you're really serious about mobile gaming, please get the POCO X3 Pro instead, because it has an audio jack. Technically, I wouldn't even consider this a quote-unquote gaming phone because it doesn't have an audio jack, and for fast-paced shooter games, it's always best to use an audio jack instead of wireless earbuds because of audio delay and whatnot. So yeah, not too sure what POCO is thinking about this phone. And one more frequent question that we got is the comparison between the POCO X3 GT and the POCO F3. Honestly speaking, I wouldn't really recommend you to buy the POCO F3 because of two main reasons. Number one, that POCO F3 is just not made to handle the Snapdragon 870 chipset properly, hence it overheats as shown in our original review of the POCO F3, which you can check it out at the top right corner there. And when the POCO F3 overheats, then the screen starts to go dim, which means your AMOLED screen is essentially not working as intended. And it's been a few months since we reviewed the POCO F3, so I'm not sure if any software updates manages to quote-unquote fix that issue of overheating. But through my theory, the only way that POCO can actually address the overheating issue is through thermal throttling, which essentially means limiting the performance so that it wouldn't go that hot. And that also means that you're paying more for performance that you can't actually use. So I just don't recommend you to buy the POCO F3 at all. Unless the POCO F3 GT comes to Malaysia. That's a completely different story for another day though. Okay, so back to the POCO X3 GT. At a price of 1,299 ringgit, I think the price is reasonable. It's not too high, not really too low. And overall, I just think that it's fairly priced. And so, if you're looking for a phone at this price range, then the POCO X3 GT is still a fairly good choice. And that's all we have to share with you today. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. And we'll see you guys in the next video.